stop scrolling, because what just happened in Kupiansk, Ukraine, is not just another update from a war far away. It's not just another dot on a map, and it's definitely not something Americans can afford to ignore. What happened there is a direct confrontation with a lie pushed by Vladimir Putin, repeated by Russian state media, and quietly accepted by far too many people outside Ukraine. That lie is simple: that Russia is winning, that Ukraine is collapsing, that resistance is pointless, and that the only realistic option left is surrender. Russia claimed Kupiansk had fallen. Putin personally said Ukrainian forces were surrounded and defeated. Russian television celebrated it as a major victory. Military bloggers amplified it nonstop. The message was clear: Ukraine is losing. The war is basically over, and the world should get used to it. And then reality intervened. On December 12th, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy showed up in Kupiansk, not nearby, not behind the lines, not in some carefully staged location. He stood at the entrance of the city, in front of a bullet-riddled road sign, surrounded by Ukrainian soldiers, just a few hundred meters from where Russia claimed its troops were positioned. That single moment dismantled weeks of propaganda. Because Kupiansk hadn't fallen, Kupiansk wasn't captured. Kupiansk was back under Ukrainian control. Ukrainian forces didn't just survive there. They outmaneuvered Russian troops. They isolated them. They cut them off. And they cleared the city methodically. Putin said the city was captured. Zelenskyy walked into it and let the truth do the talking. And this matters far more than one city. Kupiansk is a logistics hub in northeastern Ukraine. Before the war, around 26,000 people lived there. Railways, roads, and supply lines all run through this area. Ukraine liberated it during the 2022 counteroffensive. That operation humiliated Russian forces and shocked the world, and Moscow never accepted that loss. Throughout 2024 and into 2025, Russian forces kept pushing back toward the city. Slow advances, heavy casualties, constant pressure. They used underground routes, small assault teams, covert infiltration tactics. By late 2025, the situation became dangerous, and this is where Ukraine made a choice that separates successful militaries from failing ones. Instead of simply defending and bleeding slowly, Ukraine went on the offensive. Elite units were concentrated. Intelligence, ground forces, and air support were coordinated. This wasn't desperation, it was planning. Russian logistics were hit first. Ammunition depots destroyed, command posts eliminated, troop concentrations targeted. Whenever Russian units tried to regroup or move, they were struck with precision. Then Ukrainian forces moved on supply routes. Forest corridors were cleared. Villages along infiltration paths were retaken. Every road Russia depended on was shut down. At one point, Russian forces were even using an underground pipeline to move equipment and personnel. Ukraine destroyed that as well. By early December, Russian troops inside Kupiansk were completely isolated. No reinforcements, no ground resupply, only limited drone drops to exhausted soldiers. And once that happens, the end becomes inevitable. Ukrainian forces tightened the encirclement. They moved block by block, house by house. Breakout attempts failed. Relief attempts failed by mid-December. Only isolated pockets of Russian troops remained, all while Russia continued telling the world it had won. Zelenskyy's visit wasn't symbolic, it was a message. Ukraine is still fighting, Ukraine is still capable, and Ukraine is not collapsing. And he tied battlefield success directly to diplomacy, making it clear that strength on the ground creates leverage at the negotiating table. That's something many people in Washington seem to forget. Now, let's talk about the United States, because this is where things get uncomfortable. While Ukraine was retaking Kupiansk, the conversation in America wasn't about how to help Ukraine capitalize on that success. It was about how to push Ukraine toward concessions. We keep hearing the same arguments. This war is unwinnable. Ukraine can't hold out. America has bigger problems at home. We need a deal. But Kupiansk directly challenges those claims. Ukraine is not collapsing. Ukraine is adapting. Ukraine is still capable of complex, coordinated operations, and the idea that supporting Ukraine is some massive drain on America simply doesn't hold up. Most of the money allocated doesn't go to Ukraine as cash. It goes to American defense manufacturers. It supports American workers. It modernizes U.S. stockpiles. At the same time, it degrades one of America's primary adversaries without risking American lives. From a strategic standpoint, that's an extraordinary return on investment. The alternative is far worse. A Russia that succeeds in Ukraine doesn't suddenly become peaceful. It becomes emboldened. It destabilizes Europe. It pressures NATO members. It forces the US to spend far more on defense later. And the message doesn't stop with Russia. China is watching. Iran is watching. Every authoritarian regime is watching. If the lesson of Ukraine is that aggression works, that borders can be changed by force, and that democracies eventually fold, then the world becomes far more dangerous. This isn't theoretical. History has already shown us where this leads. Appeasement doesn't buy peace. It delays a larger conflict. Supporting Ukraine now is cheaper than confronting a stronger, more confident Russia later. And this idea that America needs to choose between helping Ukraine and fixing problems at home is a false choice. America can do both. It always has. The real question is whether Americans are willing to recognize what's actually at stake. Putin is betting on fatigue. He's betting people stop paying attention. He's betting democracies lose patience. Kupiansk is the answer to that bet. It proves propaganda can be beaten. It proves resistance still works. And it proves reality eventually exposes lies. So don't accept the defeatist narrative. Don't accept the idea that Ukraine should just give up. What's happening on those battlefields matters, because the outcome won't stay in Ukraine. It will shape the rules of the world that comes next. And Kupiansk is a reminder that this story is far from over.